The coping mechanisms that childhood trauma survivors develop to survive their environment end up not serving them very well in adult relationships.
Welcome to Women's Thrive Podcast. This is where you'll get to hear incredible stories of female entrepreneurs, business owners, women from all walks of life. Myself, Raymond Jan, and my co-host Abigail will be interviewing incredible women, hearing inspiring stories of women from all around the world. I have no doubt that you will find something that will be life-changing for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our future episodes.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast episode with your host, Raymond Jan. I'm so excited to have you here for another episode with one of our lovely guests. And today we're talking about childhood trauma and how it really affects adult relationships. My guest today is Danielle Sebastian. Hello, Danielle. Where are you joining from?
I am joining from Montana and so happy to be here.
Good to have you here. Danielle, this is going to be a really interesting conversation. I remember when I first met you, heard your story, and what is it that you help others do, which is navigate adult relationships after trauma, especially in an environment of a relationship. It really piqued my interest because I've never heard anyone actually supporting spouses and partners in navigating this terrain of really dealing with childhood trauma. So I know this is going to be really interesting and perhaps a very helpful conversation for many of our listeners today. But before we begin, I want to introduce Danielle. So Danielle Sebastian is a speaker and a life coach and a founder of WifeCARE. She's an expert of identifying and overcoming trauma in relationships. As a best-selling author of Resilient Wives, a guide to wives supporting their husbands through childhood trauma recovery, Danielle shares her inspiring story of resilience and hope, detailing her journey of a wife navigating a complex challenges of being a partner of a childhood trauma survivor. Danielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
I've been looking forward to having this conversation and really uncovering this topic. So tell me a little bit more about what you do and how you help others.
Yeah, thank you. I am a Montana girl. I've been a pharmacist for over 20 years, and I just had all kinds of success in my life. And I found my dream guy, and we got married 15 years ago. He had a daughter that he brought in to the relationship, and we were excited to add to the family. And right after we got married, I started to realize that there were some behaviors that I just started to not be able to understand. And I had been successful in so many things in life, but I really felt like I was not being successful in my relationship. That no matter what I tried, it just seems like we were hitting a bunch of roadblocks. And it was after a couple of years and our son was born that my husband was able to reveal a terrible history of childhood trauma at the hands of the church. And that piece of that puzzle that I felt like if we could really address that, that we might be able to get somewhere in our marriage. So I delved deep into how childhood trauma affects adult relationships. And I could find very little for spouses of partners with this history. But what I did find through trial and error and a bunch of research, really digging deep, was that the coping mechanisms that childhood trauma survivors develop to survive their environment end up not serving them very well in adult relationships. So that is my expertise. That is where I am on a mission to break the silence, to be that community, to be that support for spouses who are struggling like I did.
And it's so true because, okay, let's face it, when we get into relationships, we don't know, and I always say this, that we don't know the ins and outs of our partners. And only as you get into it, you start to uncover. And some people say that's not your responsibility to deal with somebody else's trauma. But the truth is, if you want to save your marriage and if you want to the relationship to work and you still love the person regardless, this is a work that you will embark, and you do go through personal development in a relationship.
Absolutely. Every single relationship is going to have ups and downs. And I think that learning how to communicate and really understand and be empathetic in relationships of all types is something that I feel like is a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong education. And the better that we can do and be able to adjust to different personalities, different paths, different perceptions, the better life can be.
What propelled you to say, I will stand by my husband and we will do this work together, and now to even support others?
I knew when we were dating, the things that attracted me to my husband were the fact that he was the sweetest guy. He was the first man I've ever met that actually was interested in me in a deeper level, wanted to know what I think, wanted to know more about my career and how I'd gotten there, wanted me to be successful. And he had this little girl, and the way he fathered her was the sweetest thing. They were little best buds. They were together in everything. And I knew deep down that that's who my husband was. And the more I learned about trauma, the more I realized that those behaviors were a result of what had happened to him. And that it was toxic behaviors. He wasn't a toxic person. And if there was anything that I could do to help him overcome those things, and as long as I was seeing progress to where I was happier in the relationship, I was willing to stick it out.
Yeah. Why does it matter to you now to help others?
I think there is a startling lack of resources for trauma survivors and especially adults. I think that we can do a way better job as a society in helping these childhood trauma survivors understand how their coping mechanisms end up not resulting in the best results in relationships. And the earlier that we can do that, I think the better our relationships will be. I also know that partners in general who haven't had a trauma history do not understand this, and they are so confused and they don't know what to do. They've tried all the normal things, and a lot of those things don't work with the trauma survivor. And so I've learned all those things the hard way through trial and error, doing everything wrong. And if I can help people get to the point where my husband and I are in our relationship faster and easier, that is my mission.
So let me ask you this question. If someone is in a relationship and they notice the signs of rather strange behaviors, but the other person wouldn't necessarily be willing or open to start that conversation, how does the partner go about it?
That is the magic question. And there's not a really easy answer, except for the fact that the trauma survivor needs to have several needs met before they feel comfortable revealing this type of thing. And my husband, he had never revealed to anyone, and he was intending to take that to the grave. Absolutely. And I think a lot of trauma survivors are that way. But there's several things that need to be met. They need to be far enough away from that trauma that they feel safe. And so that's why a lot of the trauma survivors don't reveal. The average age for men to reveal specifically a sexual abuse history is 52 years of age. That's astounding. And so there has to be enough space between their trauma that they feel safe now. They also usually need to know that they are with a safe person, someone that they trust that will believe them, number one, and can handle the truth and will actually be a help. So I really want survivor or spouses to understand that if someone is able to reveal to you, it really is a gift. And that just by you being that person, you are opening that up. So if you suspect this, our role is really to be that safe space And I recommend saying things like, no matter if anything did happen to you, that I am a safe place and I'm here for you if you need that. The other thing that I found, if you suspect that something happened in the past, is if you can separate yourself as a spouse from the trauma responses that you're seeing and really get those emotions to the bottom of them, it seems like then they're become more willing to start to realize how those things are affecting the relationship. And I've had a lot of success with my clients when they start using these approaches, that some of that history is revealed.
Yeah, because the worst thing I think you can do is bring in your ego and make it about you. It's like the behavior's directed towards me. What you really, I guess, not seeing is something much deeper, and that's where the ego response would not be helpful in supporting your spouse.
It is. I was there. I was 100% taking everything on. I thought all the responses were about me. So, for example, trauma survivors like to control. They like to have control over their environment and the relationship dynamics. And I, as well as the vast majority of my clients, you feel like they're trying to control you, that they're just a controlling jerk. But what's really going on is that survivor brain uses that control to feel, for them to feel safe. It actually has nothing to do with you. And so if you can make that mind shift change as a spouse and realize that they're trying to do that to keep themselves safe, then you can really get somewhere so that you both feel safe without feeling controlled.
Oh, incredible. Danielle, if you would be willing to share any of success stories that you worked with your clients and supported them in their journeys, it would be quite interesting, I think, for our listeners to hear just some of the journeys that other people have gone through.
Yes, it's been amazing. So I ended up writing my story. So that was my big step when I realized that maybe I could be this person that was able to bring all the research together, all the tools that I developed into the universe to help others to maybe fill that gap that I felt when I was going through this situation. So I wrote my story, and that really was a step for me. I'm being a pharmacist. I'm very good at researching things and really finding what the evidence supports. And then I'm also really good at breaking things down into small steps. And so I looked back and I was like, what were the steps that I had to take in order to get to this place in my relationship where I felt like I had the tools? We had the tools together to deal with the trauma triggers, deal with the emotions, and get back to a place where there was more peace and joy in our lives. It wasn't so heavy. And I was able to break it down into three things, and I created this care framework. So the care is really my program broken down into steps. So the C is you need to understand trauma. So comprehend childhood trauma and the trauma brain. Then you need to access the support that you need. Most cases, you're going to need some outside help. And the spouses often feel very isolated because maybe they don't feel this is their story to tell. But the bottom line is you can't be isolated and do it yourself. So I needed support. Then I needed to resilience build with self-care. When I was burned out, exhausted, doing everything in my relationship so that nothing bothered my husband, nothing triggered him, I was actually making things worse because I was more reactive and I couldn't really do the tools that I needed to do in order to make a better relationship. And then the E is then establishing healthier patterns in your relationship. So that is my program. That is how I help other clients get through the steps that I did. And now I am seeing these wives who were on the brink. If I gave them a relationship scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? They're like, I'm at a 2. I've tried everything. This is my last ditch effort. And by making these small changes and really understanding the trauma brain, taking care of yourself, getting the support that you need, and creating new patterns, I've been able to get people on the brink to where they're like, I think we have the tools right now to get through anything without things escalating. We no longer feel like we're walking on eggshells, and we are able to have fun again.
If your spouse does not want to do the inner work, how do you go about it? How you have, I don't know, some of your clients have been able to navigate that?
My program is really about the spouse. And despite whether their partner decides that, oh yeah, this is my trauma is causing these issues or is contributing to these issues, it's okay, because what I found is that by working with the spouse and they start to communicate differently, knowing the trauma brain, like how defensive they get with certain things. So, for example, just asking my spouse if he could help with the dishes tonight. My husband took it as a personal attack to his character, to him as a father, and to who he was as a person. And so by understanding that that has nothing to do with you and the request that you made, that your request is very normal and that you can really get down to the deeper issue, then you can make big changes, even if your husband doesn't realize that that's what's going on.
So you really reframe the conversation and you change the way you respond or navigate the terrain.
I do. Yes. It's simple little things that you can change in your communication style and then the way that you internalize things that make the biggest difference.
Yeah, just really empowering to be able to have that knowledge and toolkit to navigate things.
Yeah, when I realized that 95% of the emotions that were coming my way had nothing to do with me, yeah, I think I call it a release. Just release yourself from the burden of feeling all of that on your shoulders, because it's not.
Yeah, amazing. I think this is going to be so helpful for a lot of people to just to know that they're not alone. Because I think a lot of this, like trauma, childhood trauma, and also how this affects our relationships, is really something that kind of happens under the surface, right? Behind closed doors. Nobody really talks about that. And it's hard to find support and guidance or anything like this. So I'm really glad that we're able to have this conversation today about this.
Thank you. I completely agree. I am 100% wanting to stop the silence of these spouses who do think there's no one else out there that has been through it. There are a lot of us out there that are dealing with those patterns, having the same fights, the same conflict over and over again. And no matter what you do, nothing seems to work. I want those spouses to know that there are things that you can do, that you can start doing today that do make it better, and you're not alone. There's a whole community of us out there all in the same space. And if we can support each other, then we can make a really big difference.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's just awareness about your partner, about the triggers, about the cause and effect, understanding them. We talk, I mean, at Women Thrive, we talk a lot around trauma and usually talks about the talk, the conversations we're having is about personal trauma that you've gone through and how to deal with it, how to heal. Like I said, there's no conversations about spouses navigating that.
I think that trauma survivors themselves can benefit a lot from our perspective,
Mm.
from their relationships could be improved if they knew how we were internalizing the things that were occurring. If they knew how hard it was for us and confusing, I think they'd be able to communicate with their partner better. So that is another thing that I am really trying to get that message out. Just really, like you said, stopping the silence around this and letting people know that this is a real thing and that there are solutions.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll give you an example. Let's say when, and you quite rightly touched on it already, around someone being controlling. And I believe that a trait of a narcissism is a trauma response. And I remember when I came out of my relationship, and my partner was sort of narcissistic person, he had those traits and controlling. When I started to look it up and research it, there was no support for someone who might be dealing with that themselves, right? Who might be possessing narcissistic traits. There's a lot of negative connotation about it, but there's no support to say, okay, if you're possessing these traits, this might be something that is your response to a childhood trauma. Because there's always a reason why you
Yes.
behave a certain way.
It's very hard to find, which is astounding to me. I was 3 years into my research before that the part about the coping mechanisms that they develop affect adult relationships adversely. It
Mm.
was like ding, ding, ding. That is it. And it just seems like that is a piece that's missing in trauma recovery and the communication that's out there. I think that if people do the work, they get there.
Yeah.
But I think we could do a lot better in helping people realize that that's going on, that may encourage them to get that help to heal.
Yeah. Because let's face it, not everyone is bad, or
Oh,
it doesn't mean that they want to hurt other people. It's just they are struggling. There are people really who are struggling, and trauma can manifest itself in so many ways that are not necessarily normal to an outside perspective, and be like, well, why is this behavior, right? It just seems erratic, or it seems just really odd or strange, and that's usually a trauma response.
yeah, I have been thinking a lot about is your husband a narcissist or does he have some sort of trauma background?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really an invitation, I think, to explore deeper for spouses, and perhaps open conversations at home that might lead to healing. And I know something, that when you create a safe space for your partner, there's a new level of intimacy that happens by allowing the person to be who they are, and allowing them to open up, and allowing them to be seen, not as a bad person, not in a judgmental way, but holding that space. I think it's the most intimate thing that you can do in your relationship, really.
For a trauma survivor, they've never had that. And they're with you because you provide that for them.
A safety space. And if people are listening to this and wondering how to navigate their relationships, navigate their situations, and perhaps they don't want to be opening up to the whole wide world, but they may feel like you could be someone that they could reach out to, how do they connect with you?
The best way is my website, and it's very simple, daniellesebastian.com. I have several resources on there. If you are curious about spotting the signs, if there are some things in your relationship that could be the result of childhood trauma, I have a free download on there that talks really through that process and identifying if this could be something that is on there. So that spotting the signs download is on there. But I also, if this is resonating with you, or if you are thinking of a friend or a family member who you're like, this sounds so familiar, that I do offer a free coaching call for anyone who is interested in exploring this more. And that is all on my website.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Danielle. I hope that people will be in touch with you if they need the support. And of course, all the information will be available in the show notes. So do make sure you check it out, including Danielle's website and her social media handles. So make sure you make that connection. Danielle, you will be speaking at the Women Thrive Summit, which is our annual women empowerment event. And I'm really thrilled to have you on our stage. What can people expect during your talk?
Oh, it is going to be amazing. It is going to be really talking about no BS, real progress. So really getting down into, okay, what can I do if I have tried everything? What are the first things that I need to do to make a difference? And that is what that talk is going to include.
Amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. And to all of our listeners, if you are listening to this right now, make sure that you leave a review or leave a comment below. Let us know if this has resonated. And if you want private, really consultation one-on-one, do reach out to Danielle on her website as well. Any last parting thoughts before we close out for today's episode?
No, thank you so much. But I really am encouraging everyone to think about, everybody's had a relationship with someone who may have had trauma. And I want you to think about how those communications went. And maybe you too could benefit from changing your mindset a bit about what the behaviors that you're seeing, and just removing yourself from the behavior and really start thinking about, maybe that's something else that happened to them, and that might help your communication with other people as well. So that's
Amazing.
it.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Ray. Love it.
I look forward to having you on our stage again. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Don't take it for granted. And to make sure you check out all the information provided in the show notes. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And if you feel like somebody may need this information, do make sure you share it with others. And thank you all so much. And we look forward to seeing you again on another episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Women Thrive podcast. If you found today's episode empowering and inspiring, be sure to subscribe and follow us. Better yet, leave a review and share it with others. We're committed to bringing you more stories that will empower and inspire you on your own journey. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pursuing your dreams.